listeners. I am Terry, the host of the Christians Who Read Book. We are currently discussing the book Respectable Sins, Confronting the Sins We Tolerate, written by Jerry Bridges. Starting with this third session, we begin to delve more deeply into the specific sins of the heart that we tend to tolerate, but we need to overcome. Today, I would like to talk about reverence and lack thereof. When you hear the word reverence, what comes to mind? Reverence often conjures up the images of someone praying in holy places, exuding unusually high level of emotional stability, and being detached from worldly desires, all of which project the state of deep spiritual meditation. In contrast, lack of reverence conjures up the images of disrespect, aloofness, and moral decay, all of which lack seriousness and earnestness. As such, the term reverence is not confined to Christianity, but is often used in other philosophical or moral contexts. For example, the Chinese character that represents reverence reflects the state of respect and solemnness. In Korea, when saluting the national flag or during a Memorial Day event, hosts often use the word reverence. The host might say, "We will sing the national anthem with reverence," or "Let's have a moment of silence with a reverent heart." Interestingly, many churchgoers demonstrate similar reverence in their worship and spiritual lives, and also by avoiding irreverent behaviors. Therefore, most believers don't perceive themselves as being irreverent. How about you? If someone were to ask you, "Have you been irreverent?" how would you answer? Would you say, "Yes, I agree, I lack reverence"? Or would you hesitate thinking, "No, I am not irreverent"? In general, you might find it rather easy to assert that you are not irreverent. Then, how might you respond if the question was phrased differently? If asked, "Are you a reverent believer?" how would you respond? It might be more challenging to confirm with confidence that you have been reverent. Perhaps this is because you genuinely don't perceive yourself as having been reverent, or if you do, you might feel hesitant to declare it to others because you are concerned about sounding a bit presumptuous. This type of reasoning might suggest that there are gray areas in whether or not being reverent. However, in reality, we are either reverent or irreverent. What does the Bible say? In his book, Respectable Sins, Confronting the Sins We Tolerate, Jerry Bridges explains that irreverence reflects our attitude towards God. He defines irreverence as living without much thought about God, His will, His glory, and our dependency on Him. When we live without considering God at the center of our lives, as if God and His will, glory, and our reliance on Him don't matter, we are being irreverent. Were you aware of this? Jerry points out the obvious first, that many non-believers or secularists who do not acknowledge God are undoubtedly irreverent. Then he points out the less obvious. Even among those who claim to believe in God, many are surprisingly irreverent despite their moral uprightness. People who believe that there is no God may fit the definition of irreverence, but among believers who claim to trust in God, there are also many irreverent individuals who live as if God does not exist. According to Jerry, these individuals may receive respect and praise, show kindness and politeness, attend church, and volunteer regularly. Still, if they live as if God doesn't exist, they are irreverent. They don't think about God daily and act as if God is absent, demonstrating reverence neither in thoughts nor in their actions. If they live each day without considering God and behave as if He doesn't exist, they are not necessarily immoral people, but they are irreverent. A reverent person approaches everything with a prayerful heart, seeking God's guidance in all endeavors, decisions, and outcomes. This person makes plans and acknowledging God, saying, "Lord, today I plan to do this and that at church. Guide me with your wisdom and lead me according to your will. If this is not right, please intervene. I entrust this plan to your hands." Or, "Lord, I am planning to visit Korea. When would be a good time to visit? I have things to take care of in my mind, and you will give me wisdom and guidance." This attitude represents reverence, according to Jerry. Psalm chapter 16, verse 9 says, "The heart of a man plans its way, but the Lord establishes his steps." Living with the awareness of God's presence, seeking His guidance, and entrusting our plans to Him is at the heart of a reverent life. This way of life glorifies God. The Apostle Paul's instructions, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, clearly lays out the principles that could guide us in our reverent lives. Are we just like the non-believers and secular colleagues when we merely work for our own benefits and for promotions and higher salaries? Shouldn't we aim to please God in everything we do and exalt Him before others? Doing so would please God and glorify Him. That would be what it means to live for God's glory. That would exemplify the essence of a reverent person. How consciously and prayerfully do we glorify God in our words and actions? Are we often forgetful of God in our everyday living? Our lack of desire to develop an intimate relationship with God reveals our irreverent nature. Do we crave God like deer pants for the water? Do we earnestly seek Him? We would not be earnestly seeking God when we do not rely on God or do not live in His presence. The lack of reverence connects all these aspects together. Jerry suggests that irreverence is a fundamental sin, more than even pride. When we live every moment acknowledging that everything we have, our existence, and our accomplishments are by God's grace, we keep pride away from us. Similarly, if we are conscious that God hears everything we say, we would likely not utter unkind or malicious words. The root of these sins, like pride and unkindness, is irreverence. Such irreverence would lead to gossip, hatred, dissatisfaction, and complaints. By pursuing reverence, we try to live in God's presence every moment. We are accountable before God, utterly reliant on Him. When we remember this, we naturally lead a reverent life. What about you? Are you living a reverent life, or are you irreverent? Now that you understand what reverence is, shouldn't you strive to live a life of reverence? 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7 says, "Have nothing to do with irreverent, silly men. Rather, train yourself for godliness." With that, we conclude our discussion here at the Christians Who Read Books.